Good morning, everyone. It's Joker, and today we are back with another slime video. And today I wanted to discuss something that's been in the game for a while, about a week, but I never really truly got around to fully covering and the impact of it. It is the extra skill points we have available to us. On turn one. So changes to initial skill cost limit in battle following a data download 1017, which was last week. The initial skill cost limit in all battles will be changed from 100 to 150, including Valor Cup. So this means that instead of starting out and you have 30 points out of 100 in every fight, you now have 30 points out of 150. And I wanted to really dive deep into that and take a look at what teams exactly truly benefit off of this 50% raise in your total skill cap points. Now, I will lead with the caveat that all of the old 5-star protectors, pretty much they all benefit from this in varying different ways. Some less than others, but all the old 5-star units that are not EXs, that are not EX unbounds, it's just more helpful for them. So today we're only really going to be looking at EX teams since they've been the focus for the past 19 months, and these just know that they're better automatically. So if we look at a traditional blue stacking team that's meant to stack up your points and it raises your skill cap, I believe that this update helps them the least amount. Because in the beginning of the fight, if you have a nice hand that you can change into full blues like this, you're not getting 150 skill points out of this. You're getting 53. So that doesn't really help you right there. And even throughout the middle of the fight, even when we get extra skill points off of the protector, like we're getting up to 200 to 300 points, an extra 50 doesn't really mean that much to teams that just need to use maybe 2 orb changes and an alt swap. Like we already had enough points for that most of the time. And I will say most of the time. There are a few teams that can really benefit off this, like the Primal Demon team that lets you use a number of skills multiple times in a turn. So Blanc and Violet, like they do get buffed from this by having a little bit extra to use on any given turn, but they're like the oddity. They're not the prime example. The prime example is just a traditional team that doesn't need to use the same skill over and over again. And here, like, we're not really benefiting because we got a kind of a wonky hand. But at no point in this entire run did I be like, man, I'm really glad I had that extra 50 skill points. It really helped me orb change. No, we have enough. We have 2 orb changes on this team, and if we can't get around a turn with just these 2, then the run is dead anyways. So there's not really that much of an impact in the early to middle stages of any blue stacking team's run. And even when you get towards the end of the fight with this, like we're on turn 7, we're at 400 points, which was the previous cap. Like we would be capped at 400 the next turn. Like we would only have that much. But now we have an extra 50 on turn 8. Does it actually matter? No, because most of the big time buffs for blue stacking team cost 80 points. 8, 16, 24, 32, 400. We had at 400 points exactly enough points to use 5 big time buffs. And if you wanted to try and fit a 6th buff in there, you would have to use one early and hold it in the back. And that hasn't changed because an extra 50 skill points does not equal 80. So if you needed to use a 6th buff, you would still have to hold it in the back because you just wouldn't have enough. If you had a skill that costs less than 50, then yeah, sure, fine, whatever. But orb changes on these teams cost more than 50 by this point in the fight. All your buffs are primarily 80-point buffs, and there's nothing else for you to really use on turn 8 for this team that's gonna like 50 points is actually going to impact. Because if we look at this 1, 2, 3, and then we still have 3 more skills to use in the back, that's 160 points, or that's 240 points, and we have 210, so we're 30 points shy. So it doesn't really impact traditional blue stacking teams that much, apart from those kind of one-offs that need multiple skills used in a turn, like Primal Demon. Let me rephrase. Traditional blue stacking teams did not really get an update. However, the stupid child Maribel and her team got a significant upgrade in this. And this is because this is not a traditional blue stacking team. It's still a blue stacking team. You still want blue orbs. You're still stacking a buff with the protector. But originally you were capped out at 100 points, which really, really hurt Maribel and the rest of her team because it really limited, because you were pretty much dependent on Lumi's convert. And once you get 4 or 5 turns in, the thing costs 75 or 90 or 100 points, and that doesn't give you any room to do anything else. So the fact that we can now get another 50 does mean a lot, because we have an extra 50% skill points to use at any given point. And so let's, show it off. All right, so we're 5 turns into the fight. We've had to use Lumi's convert every single turn, so it's 65 points. And if we were still capped at 100, that is a hefty chunk of your total skill points. It's literally 65% of all your skill points just in one thing, which is not super great. But now we're at 150. Now we have the points to use a few different things. So we could do this. We could do an alt buff, and then we would still have enough to come in here and, oh no, I made a mistake. I didn't convert the Lumi orb. Oh, well, good thing I have Rieger, who costs 25 apiece, so we can convert here and alt swap, and wow, look at that. We still made a good blue hand out of 1, a misplay, and 2, expensive skills. Like 65 points is not cheap on a team that passively resets only 10 per turn, but costs an extra 20 every single time you use it. So here, I mean, that worked out really well. And now we're getting extra 300 skill points on blues from Maribel, which means we're going to be capped out again at 150, which means that next turn, if by chance we get unlucky or something, and we have to use Lumi's convert again, it's going to cost, what, 75 points now? Oh, and look at that. We do. Okay, well, we also have to alt swap away, so that's another couple points right there. We have EX alts. Cool. Let's do this. Boom. So, alt swap away. Full hand convert. That would have been more points than we would have had access to with Maribel before this update, because that costs 75 and that costs 35. That is not 100 points. That costs a little bit more than 100. We would not have been able to do that. And now we still have 40 points left over, which means that I can safely bring in Lumi and use another skill with her, which I think is the last AoE buff. And this team does run a lot better. Yeah, 30%. So we're fully buffed out on that. So this impacted teams that have hard skill caps very much. Maribel, I think, does get a little bit more useful now out of this. I still think she's quite niche and gimmicky, but her team does run a whole lot better. And now that, on turn 8, once we can use Rimuru's extra 150 points, that's 150 on top of 150. So that does impact. Well, it's actually 150 on top of 60 points. But it does give you room to use like one more buff. Maybe if you were missing the Lumi buff, one of them that had got reset down, you could have enough points to do that as well. This team does run a lot better with the 150 new cap. The next example are our new burst teams that give us 30 skill points for the first 5 turns. New Year's Blessing, Xion, Exalted Champion, Velzard, the new Octagram Demon Lord, Guy, Emils, like all these characters that have a hard cap at 100 and then gave us an extra 30, so every turn we would preferably be at 130 points. Well, now they have an extra 50, which does make a difference. So now we have 180 points, and people have been experiencing that very first-handedly with the Jubilee that I just recently ended as of recording this video. But here, let's just do this, and let's give all the orbs away to Rimuru again. Let's rainbow them, and this is important because we are going to have access to more points to use more small buffs. So Rimuru has a 40-point buff. Diablo has a 25-point debuff, Shinch has a 55-point buff, and Milam has a 40-point buff, debuff. And then we've brought Benimaru for a physical buff. That's 40 points. 40, 80, 120, and then this is 80 points right there. So that's 200 points that we would have to use in one turn, which at the old cost, 100, like there's no way we were ever going to do that. So what we'd have to do is we'd have to hold Reamer's buff, and then we would have enough the following turn to use the 55 from Shinsha, the 40 from Milim, and that'd be, what, 95 points? And if you were capped out, you could then use Diablo's buff. But there was no way to use Benimaru at that point. Well, now there will be. So let's do this. Let's get 103 points, and already we're 3 points over what would have been prior to this update, and we're going to get another 30 off of this because of just Xion giving it passively. And so now what we can do is we could use the Rimuru buff as we normally would have anyways, but he can go away now. Like, we don't have to deal with him anymore. And then we'll do a Xion here. We don't need to use any other skills. We're going to cap out at 150 right here. And even, oh, we didn't. Okay, because we had too many blue orbs. That's fine, whatever, sure. Let's just use Xion again. Boom. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, so yeah, we're not going to cap out, but 141. We're going to get 30 on top of that. And like we'll be looking pretty good at that point. Will we have enough to use every single skill in the world? Well, no. But we also have one extra turn to try and get another protector, which is what's really important. So here, I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're still not going to get it, but we're at 171 points now. What do we need to actually nuke here? 40, 95, 110. Yeah, we have enough. So we could do this now. Debuff, boom. Diablo can come out. We can take his orb. That's fine. You're out of here. We'll use the 2 buffs here, and we still have 51 points left over. So even though this is not a great hand in an ideal world, this is not actually when we're going to nuke. The fact that we can do this, and we can use 4 buffs on a burst team on turn 4 before we're even technically ready to nuke, is very impactful. And that applies to, again, all of these protectors that are hard capped but give you 30 points like Exalted Champions. It helps make that team run even better than it already does. You could now safely bring Violet with an 80-point buff and not have to worry about it as much. You could bring, the Emil's team with the new Kyoko and Isis, and there's a lot of buffs going on that you probably wouldn't be able to use without this extra 50 points. So I think it impacts burst teams the most because now they have more team building options with some units that maybe have higher cost skills that you might have been afraid to bring, that now you can without having to worry about skill point costs because you have an extra 50% given to you already. I'll bring an Exalted Champions just as a good example, but normally Violet would be here, yeah, with an 80-point buff, but there would be no way in hell we'd bring another 80-point buff. So this is assuming we're nuking with Guy in this example, right? So he can ult rush. This team is very self-sufficient for the most part. I mean, he can give himself and other wind allies extra ult. All right, that's cool. We can convert here. We've got 50 points left over. We use the green buff with Veldora already. So this is going to get us the EX ult. And traditionally, normally, after this, we would be using the Guy buff and the Rimuru buff, and we send them away. And then we'd come back, and we'd have enough points to do maybe one more thing on the nuke, the 80-point skill, and that's about it, because 50 points at that point in the fight, none of the skills will add up to that. But now we can do a lot with this. We have 180 to use right here. So we'll use the synergy. We'll use the attack. We'll use the ult swap. We'll use another stack of the synergy resistance down. These are big time things that we can do now. We can safely ult rush twice without having to worry about point cost and all that while still having access to every single buff. And since the green buff is still active, now we have a couple rainbow orbs. We're definitely going to make back our skill cap here. And then on the nuke turn, instead of 130 point cap, we're going to be at 160, 180, which means that we have, almost 180. Sorry. That didn't work out as well as I thought. But the point of the matter is, in a perfect world, we would have enough to use both the Violet buff and that Shizu buff being 80 points. Which, technically we still do. So let's bring Guy in for Veldora. Okay, cool. Let's bring Shizu in for Rimuru. We've already used his buff. And now we've got the 80-point skill here. We've got the 80-point skill here. We would have had an extra 2 points, so 20, which we don't have anything to use that's 20 points here. But this now adds a whole nother dimension of power because we can actually fit another big time buff onto Exalted Champions, which they didn't really need any more power, but they certainly got it. So this is another prime example of 50 points really opening things up to burst teams. So now, rejoice, all glue huffers out there. The Vengeance team got a significant buff because almost every skill in this team cost 25 points, which really restricted you from using multiple skills. So if you got unlucky and your turn was crap, then you could use 2 orb changes and 2 vengeance skills and that's it. Or 3 orb changes and 1 vengeance skill. It's not ideal. But with an extra 50 points, that's another 2 skills you can use. So in this specific turn right here, like, oh, yeah, well, let's just bring in, let's use the green buff with Veldora because we actually haven't used that yet. In the old team, all right, that's 1 skill gone. All right, cool. And then we have to bring in Traya to convert, so we'll swap her in for Veldora. And then we'll use the special convert. Okay, that's 2 skills gone. All right. And now we reset. No, actually, no, we don't have to do that because we can just do this. 1, 2, 3. And we have 2 blues left over. 1, 2, 3. Vengeance, the seal. So we've got defense. And then we can use Velzard to reset. We have 150 points. The green buff is active. We were already going to make back 150 points even without using that. But we're going to get extra protection gauge now. And now we can use the orb change. That was 6 skills. 6 skills in 1 turn. And it turned an okay hand into literally everything that we could possibly need with this team. And next turn, we're going to have a lot of gauge, which means that we're going to need the alt swap with Shizu. But it's not really going to hurt us anymore. And we're going to cycle Velzard. We've got 150 points coming in. We've got 2 alts coming. And we can safely bring in not only just another orb changer or another support character, but we could bring in Overlord Shizu or Idol Shuna or someone, and we could just convert these alts because this team, wow, that's lucky. This team doesn't really need alts to do damage. It's the vengeance mechanic that they want, and it's sending full hands of greens to get max points, to get max protection gauge. I don't give 2 shits how much Raphael's alt does, or Yome's, or combined. So I don't need them to do this. So we can just simply alt swap this away. And we have a full hand of green. Okay, well, what else can we do? Well, we can certainly do 3 more things. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, well, there's double vengeance, the defense again to reapply it, even though you don't have to do it every other turn. We still have 50 points. So if this is the case and you brought another vengeance character, you could use another stack of vengeance. This team really got buffed, and I don't know if that was their intention because they have been trying very hard to nerf the vengeance team for the past year since it came out, and they just made it a whole lot easier to use. So congratulations, glue huffers. Go buy yourself an extra large pack of Elmer's glue. Huff away, because the vengeance team, I don't know if it got revitalized, but it got even easier to run now. But I think that's a good example of where we're sitting at. Let me know what you guys think of this whole update. Do you think it's good? Do you think it's bad? I don't know if anyone's actually going to think it's bad, but like, what team do you think got buffed the most out of this extra 50 skill points? Let me know in the comments below. But that's it for me, guys. Take it easy, and I'll see you all later.